So let me introduce Dr. Vicente Navarro. He is currently professor of political and social sciences at the Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona, Spain, and Catalunya. He is also a professor of public policy at Johns Hopkins University, where he has been teaching for 40 years. He directs the master's program in public and social policy at Pompeu Fabra University, sponsored jointly at the Pompeu Fabra University and the Johns Hopkins University. He is also the director of the Observatorio Social de España. Vicenç Navarro area of investigations are political economy, the welfare state, and policy studies. Has published 24 books, which have been translated into several languages. Vicente will speak on what the U.S. could have learned from some, not many European countries. And Vicente is one of the great progenitors of social epidemiology. I first read his work in Monthly Review, so it is an honor and un honor estar aquí en el panel contigo, Dr. Navarro. Please.
Thank you so much. The curriculum is a little dated. Anyway, I'm now retired from both universities, and that most of my professional life has been in the United States. I came originally from Spain, and that is important data for what I'm going to say later on. I had to leave Spain for my participation in the anti-fascist struggle, and I know fascists when I see them. And I tell you, we have a real problem. We really have a problem. We have fascism, both sides of the North Atlantic, and they are growing and growing. That I had to leave Spain. I went to Sweden, from there to Great Britain, hoping to go back to Spain. Franco never died, even although we tried to kill him many times. And then we came to the United States in 1964. And when I arrived in the United States, I was not very welcome, even by the left. I was a Marxist, and the left was not even close to that. And people we got friendly later on, Barbara Ehrenreich and all these friends from Health Park, but they saw the enemy was the medical profession. And I saw my friend, but they have been a pain in the neck, but they are not the enemy. The insurance company is the enemy. They didn't believe me. I don't think they would deny that now. So in that respect, I think I'm concerned because I do feel very much part of the United States, but also very much from Europe. And that I see my role sometimes to explain the United States to my comrades in Europe and vice versa, to explain Europe to my comrades in the United States. It's not easy, but I keep trying. So what I want to stress is that in my 50 years of work in the United States, I have never seen such a critical moment, a worrisome moment, and frightening moment like now. And I still very much live now in Barcelona, in Spain, and the same happened in Europe. We have Hitler, we have Mussolini, but we have many Hitlers and Mussolinis. Fascism is not the thing of the blue uniform, raising the hand and all these things. That is a paraphernalia, is misleading. I tell you, Trump is a fascist. His ideology is clearly a fascist. Le Pen is a Nazi. Vox in Spain is a Nazi. Some of them they recognize and they're very proud of. Others are more intelligent and try to establish some distance. Italy is an example. Okay, but fascism is coming, and the left is very responsible for that. And that is the point that has to be understood. Okay, because for example, if we came along, we see that what we are seeing, the pandemic show what the reality have reached a point. Okay, in that respect, the pandemic has been a magnifier glass of what the enormous problem we have. Okay, and United States that is point as the reference for the liberal democracy has shown what liberal democracy is about. United States, there is extremely limited democracy, and is presented as the leading all democratic forces against the post-communism in Russia. Good Lord, define Putin as communism is to represent enormous ignorance of what happened Putin was promoted by Clinton is that situation of when the ignorance is overwhelming, even the left, even the left. So in that respect, we have capitalism as the dominant force in two sides of a war. There is a war. There is the World War III. It's going on. There is a bellicose side. There's a military side in Ukraine, and the poor people in Ukraine are suffering out of that conflict of two powers, United States and as an appendix, Europe, and Russia with appendix with China. This is the war, and it's going on, okay, with deaths, some in the front, but others in Europe, in the United States, and even worse, in what is called now the South, what we used to call the underdeveloped or the poor countries, with the majority of people in the world, okay? And people are dying, okay? In that respect, that is where we have enormous conflict or two forms of capitalism. One, what we might call the liberal capitalism, and the other one, what is called, with a lot of misgivings, the state capitalism. I say that because liberal capitalism is also state capitalism. And in that respect, that is where two different forms of a state capitalism we're seeing here in that conflict, you see. That is why I'm very, very concerned, because what is the alternative? What is the alternative? And that benefits both sides, okay? I don't want to speak about Putin. I have written very, very extensively, but he was predicted in terms of that. He's corrupted to the more, but he is a fascist in the nationalist extreme form that not too dissimilar from Trump. There's a certain affinities between Trumpism and Putinism, okay? So imagine a war where these groups, the war might end, it might end, but imagine that war with these 2 points of references. Imagine for a moment, okay? So it is in that point that you have to realize that that issue, what is the alternative? Well, Howard saying wisely revolution, but what in the hell we mean by revolution? So in that respect, a revolution is not something that happened day, our age. No, revolution is happening all the time. And when revolution happened, the people who make the revolution don't even speak about revolution. I had the experience in Sweden when the growing up of the power of the working class and popular classes led to a situation that you would define socialism as the public ownership of the means of production. They were coming close. And there were some reforms that were asking, well, all the benefits that are acquired in the industry and outside the industry in commerce can be accumulated. A percentage of that benefit is going to buy the stocks of the business enterprises. That had been buying the means of production by the working class, and that was absolutely denied in terms of that. Okay, so it is in that sense that we have a real problem. We have two forms of empires. Okay, United States is dramatically undemocratic. If I may, let me encourage you my recent article in Counterpunch. The precisely, I said, the enormous limitations of the liberal democracy in the United States is remarkably undemocratic in the United States. It does not deserve to be called a democratic country. And that can be shown empirically. Look, for example, the Senate, 2 senators for the state, California, 40 million people, Wyoming, 500,000, and they have the same number of senators in the Senate. And of course, the smaller states tend to be conservatives, with Republicans, etc., etc. So that lack of representation of our political system is overwhelming. Not to speak about the enormous influence of money in the politics and many other things. And it's very easy to show that the United States democracy is very limited. And I must say, much more limited than the majority of the Western European countries, much less democratic than the Western democratic countries. in the Western European countries. So that is something that has to be understood, okay? And here is quite remarkable. And Europe accepts that leadership from a very undemocratic country, representing democratic nations, asking for democracy. Well, it's happening in Western Europe. Western Europe is the enormous failure of social democracy, accepting the third way, Clinton, Tony Blair, and here it goes. And it's not surprising that the people who live in what is called the red circles in Paris, in Barcelona, in London, that used to vote left, the red ring in Paris, that used to vote communist, now they vote Le Pen. And in Baltimore, a city I know extremely well, typical industrial city that has declined dramatically, the steel workers, the steel mills were the second employer in the state of Maryland. Today, white steel workers, fairly well paid doing the steel mills, when the steel mills left for outside the country, due to the globalization encouraged by the Clintons, Dundalk collapsed. Dundalk 100% voted for Trump. It's understandable. It's understandable. The working class increasingly will vote fascism. It's completely understandable. And that we cannot demonize Trump voter, because he's a type of voter fed up with the system, and they hate the liberal establishment, you see. And that is why the left is in a very difficult situation, okay? And also, we should oppose the war, okay? But it's also what Trump will be doing, you see. But we oppose it for very different reasons. But that is where I think it requires a lot of understanding and creativity in terms of what we're trying to do. Now, what do I say in the introduction of Rob's book? I like Rob's book because it's new. I don't quite, Rob, don't take it badly, but you emphasize too much as epidemiology. We could discuss that another day. What in the hell we mean by epidemiology? I think epidemiology is extremely wrong in the classical way used in the United States. I'm speaking in the Vatican or public health in Spain, Hopkins, okay? So what is epidemiology in that respect? Epidemiology assumes that Baltimore is an aggregate of almost 1 million people. But you cannot find out the number of people by adding the number of individuals you have. The city is much more than that, you see. So that is why I have been really critical of my friends that I call epidemiologists. But having said that, and getting the message I'm getting, I congratulate the new book. I delighted the monthly review. I was a good friend of Paul Sweezy, and I was fond of whatever monthly was doing. And I think it's a book that should be written because it raises some of the issues that we need enormously, and the left needs enormously. And with that, I shut up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Navarro. Brilliant intervention. Thank you for that perspective and bringing all your experiences together that way. We are indebted to you for your wisdom and knowledge, and of course, the years of practice.